Hi, everybody. I hope that um, this is working. I am trying something new this time where I'm trying to simulcast this November live chat um, from three different channels. So we're trying to run this on my Facebook page and on Instagram Live and also on TikTok. So I hope that wherever you may be joining me from, that this is working for you and you can see me and hear me just fine. Um, as we always do when we do these monthly chats, we polled you to see what it is that you wanted me to talk about. And this year we started, I mean, this month, uh, we started out with creativity was the overarching topic that you wanted to discuss. Writing, creativity in writing, which is of course always a lot of fun to talk about. That is the part of writing that all writers enjoy. Right? Is the that spark, right? The idea that comes to you, and you just have to tell that story. And then from there, of course, we go down into micro topics to really get to what about creativity you want to discuss. And this month it was creative versus professional, and that kind of covers a lot, even though it was one of the micro topics, right, where we really kind of narrowed it down. Um, but creative versus professional, one level of that, and I'm going to start out first by saying that there is only one thing that is true about taking writer advice from a writer. If you yourself are a writer and would like to kind of know a little bit about my process, is that it's important to kind of hear different people's processes, with the understanding that what works for one writer may not work for any other writer on the planet. Creativity is so personal. So take what I can offer, throw out whatever doesn't work for you. Maybe combine something that I've told you with something that somebody else has told you. There is no one way to write. There is only your way, and that is a process of figuring it out. Figuring out whether you're a pantser or a plotter, and so on. So that said, for me, creativity versus like creative versus professional, the first layer of that is taking the idea, what you're feeling creative about, that story, that kernel that you want to tell, and then making sure that the final product that comes out is professional. And that is, of course, that your grammar, your punctuation, your spelling, your storytelling style, all is professionally presented. Are you following the three act structure? That is going to be universal for all writing. Is your character following the hero's journey? That too is going to be universal. So while we say that books aren't written, they're rewritten, because in the history of mankind and in storytelling in general, we are all following the hero's journey, and that story is basically presented in a three-act structure. And within that framework is where creativity applies. So you have creative versus professional. You have to have that professional layer to your writing, and then you bring the creativity into that, and that's where you make the story your own, and you make the characters your own, and you make the conflict and their interactions with each other uniquely you. Who is a good publisher? I'm going to tell you that I don't believe there are good publishers. And that is coming from somebody who's been in this business for over 20 years. Um, Publishers, by default, are there to make money. And inherently, publishers believe that writers are a commodity to be exhausted. So they will find what's working. They will exploit it to the fullest extent possible. And regardless of the emotional, physical, and mental toll that takes on the writer, and when that writer is completely and totally exhausted by a framework that undervalues the creative process and overvalues the monetization of that product, they will move on to another writer, and that is just the way the business works. There are still some independent publishers that, and by that I don't mean like an indie author. I mean, a smaller independent publisher who has a passion for the niche that they publish within. And those can possibly be a better experience. But it's going to be harder, of course, to break out, get the distribution that you want. All of the bigger publishers are beholden to stockholders, and stockholders want to see profits continue to rise. And as the cost of printing and shipping, as distribution becomes an issue, as we lose more and more distributors, those parts of the publishing industry don't have a lot of wiggle room for pricing. Publishers are kind of strapped when it comes to how much it costs to print a book, how much it costs to ship that book, distribute that book. The one point where they can really kind of change how much they're spending is what they're paying the author. And so authors continuously get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, smaller and smaller amounts of the pie. And it's not a sustainable business model, and eventually it will collapse. So and that's something to keep in mind. I say with anything, as an author, you are your own business. Even when you're published by a publisher, you are your own business, and you should take any opportunity you can to gain exposure, to find new readers, keeping in mind that you need to also be running that on a personal basis and not leaving that entirely to the publisher, because at some point you may switch publishers, you may be dropped by your publisher. And you have to be able to continue on and to continue building and growing your business. So always keep in mind that your first loyalty is to yourself and to your own business, and doing what works best for you. And understand that the publisher's mindset is a little bit different. They're not worried about you. They're worried about their stockholders being happy. And that is going to impact how well you are treated, and how well your books are treated, and how much money you receive, promotion, marketing, how good your cover art is, all of those sorts of things are parts where you're going to get squeezed out. So there's that. Books most popular. My most popular book is Bared to You. That is the first book in the Crossfire series. The second book in the series, Reflected in You, is the most liked and the highest rated book out of the series. Most readers, surprisingly, are not aware that there are 5 books in the series. I said 10, but you know what I mean, 5 books in the series. So some readers are still under the impression that the series is a trilogy, even though books 4 and 5 came out in by 2016. And so it's been almost 10 years that all 5 books have been available. That is because the publisher marketed the book as a trilogy, even though it was a quintet. And that is another example of how publishers can be very bad at publishing books. So readers were under the impression that there were only 3 and there were 5. There were always going to be more than 3 books. That was apparent when I finished Bared to You. So it wasn't as if I got to the 3rd book and went, oh, there's 2 more to go. It was apparent from the beginning, and then the publisher marketed it as a trilogy. So that's what you get. Anyway, so back to creativity versus professionalism. So, right. So there's that initial layer of that, which is you need to know how to structure a book. That is the professionalism part of creativity. Then you have the other layer of creativity versus professionalism, which is how marketable is your idea, right? And that is where, you have an instance of authors that are chasing trends, right? Romantasy is really big right now. I've never really been interested in writing romance. I'm speaking hypothetically. Never been really interested in writing romantasy, but if that's what's selling, if that's the only thing that agents and publishers want to see, I'm going to take a crack at it. And there is, of course, the need to be able to leverage what is popular in the market, but you also have to keep in mind that your strengths as a writer are what are ultimately going to sell your books, and not just the book that you're working on right now, but to build your career, to build your backlist. So for me personally, I've written paranormal romance, I've written outside of romance, I've written urban fantasy, I've written thrillers, I've written within romance, historical romance, contemporary romance, fantasy, science fiction. The reason why I can kind of shift around it and do those sort of things is because I always play to my strengths, and I know what those are. So when you look at the idea that is creative for you, you're that kernel of an idea that is important to you, and you're also looking at its marketability, you have to keep in mind that you can chase a trend, but only if your strengths can be reflected in that new genre. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. When I first started out, erotic romance as a genre really did not exist. There was romance and there was erotica. If you were writing an erotic romance, because they didn't really know how to categorize that, they typically took your book and shelved it in the erotica section where it was never going to find romance readers. And so erotic romance was really, really just kind of getting started when I began writing. And then it kind of hit a boom a couple years after I published my first book, which was great for those of us who were already writing erotic romance. But it became what all of the publishers were looking for, right? They realized that readers wanted the door to be open. They wanted to know that, that alpha male hero, when he was in private, intimate moments with his heroine, was showing a different side of himself. And that their relationship was evolving through that sexual interaction. You could see them communicating without words. You understood why the relationship was moving forward. A lot of times in erotic romance, the characters have difficulty communicating verbally about what they're feeling, and they can communicate that through touch. And so once publishers realized that that's something that readers were interested in reading and that there was a demand for it, that became what they were looking for and what writers were trying to write to, quote, get their foot in the door. So, and it works to a certain extent. Some authors sat down, they wrote an erotic romance. It was picked up because that was what was in demand. And then they had to write another one. And then they had to write one after that. And they realized, 2 or 3, 4 books in, that they don't want to be writing that. That is not what fulfills them. That's not what makes them happy. And what they ended up discovering was that foot in the door was not, because if they weren't going to continue writing that, the publisher was not interested in publishing anything else from them. And they were right back to square one, trying to shop and sell work. But now they had this uphill battle of, well, you were writing this, now we're going to have to rebrand you as writing this. That's a lot more work. So you've actually made it harder for yourself to get ahead. There are a lot of authors who got published during that erotic romance boom that are not publishing today, even though they would like to be, because they could not get past that hump. So that's something to keep in mind when you're chasing a trend. Do you really enjoy writing it? Do you want to continue to write that? those sorts of considerations are very important. So there are ways to write things that are marketable, that are commercial, that are in demand, that are also feeding your own personal creative well, and are actually going to move your career forward continuously. Not in this, I'm going to do this for a little bit and then I'm going to have to start all over again and rebrand myself and maybe come up with a new author name and launch a whole new website and create a whole new marketing line and try to explain to readers what I'm doing. Like, you don't want to do all that. That's a lot. That's really a lot. It's really hard enough to build a brand the first time. It is really, really difficult to keep reinventing that brand. So you have to keep in mind that, your creativity has to be commercial and it has to be marketable. It has to be something that readers are looking for, but it also has to be something that speaks to you. So I tell writers all the time, you have to write first and foremost what is in your heart to tell. And I have seen some writers say, well, it's not about writing what you want, it's writing about what readers want. And I'm going to tell you that I completely disagree with that, because your reader is the reader that wants to read the books that you also want to read. And the reason why you're writing is because you have a story to tell that you're not finding, right? If you were just going to rewrite what somebody else wrote, and then obviously there's no point in doing that. And I'm not talking about plagiarism. I'm just saying, because plagiarism is a word for word copying of the book. If the idea is substantially similar to what somebody else has already written, you're not going to be able to sell that book, and readers aren't going to be happy about picking it up. So you have to what you're doing as a writer is you're writing the story that you want to read that you can't find. And so that is focusing on that is where you're going to find your reader, because your reader is the reader who likes to read books like you like to read. And that's why you're writing that book, because you want that book to be out there that you haven't yet found, that you haven't yet discovered. So I always believe that the first thing that you should be doing is writing the story that you want to tell, the story that means something to you, that you feel that fire for, that you really want to convey that story to other readers. And that is how you will find your people. That's how you will find your readers. And that is how you will be successful in your career. It's not about writing what you think readers want to read, because I'm going to tell you right now, while you may find a reading group that all likes to read the same book, you're not going to find that every reading group in the world is reading the same book, because readers want different things. There are different groups of readers. And something else to keep in mind when you're talking about creativity versus professionalism is sometimes the stories that you're telling are not hugely commercial, right? They may not sell millions of copies. They may not be acquired by a studio and made into a film. Why? Because that particular type of story, while it has a readership, that readership is perhaps smaller than maybe something that's possibly more commercial. And then you have to look at that and say, professionally, is what I'm writing going to get me to my professional goals, right? And if it's not, then you have to ask yourself, can I find new ways to be creative or new stories to tell that are more commercial, that are still true to me, that are still stories that I'm not finding, that are still talking about characters or situations, conflicts and traumas that I'm not seeing. And of course, going back to the original topic of inspiration, where do you find out whether the story you want to tell has not been told a million times? That is by being an avid reader. And that is by being an avid reader of books outside of the genre that you're writing in. I tell people all the time when writers ask me, what do I do to get past a writing block? Are you reading is the first question I ask. Are you reading? the number of times that the writer will look at me and say, I don't have time to read. I'm trying to write this book. I'm trying to raise my family. I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to be a caregiver to my parent. There's a million reasons why the time in your day is limited. But I will tell you that if you are a writer who is not reading regularly, you will run out of things to write, because refilling the well comes from being a reader. The reason why you want to be a writer is because you're a reader. And once you turn your back on the reader side of yourself and try to focus 100% on the writer side of yourself, you will not be a writer. You will not be able to produce what you need to produce. I 100% guarantee that to you. You have to be an avid reader, and you have to continue to read. And I strongly recommend that if you're writing a romantasy, that you stop reading romantasy while you're writing that book. You need to read outside of the genre that you're writing in. Read a horror that's completely outside of romance even. Read a nonfiction book. Read a contemporary romance. Read a historical romance. Read outside of what you're writing, and continue to do that. When you're done writing your romantasy book, then pick up a romantasy book and read that. But I do not recommend reading in the genre that you are currently in your manuscript. You will find that the creative spark that you need to get past those points where you've written yourself in a corner or where you've come to a writing block, you will not be able to get out of those. You will be stuck there. You'll be trapped in there for a long time, or your work will be derivative and you won't even realize that it is. You won't even realize that something your hero said was something that the hero said in the book that you're reading 100 pages earlier. Your brain will not be able to pull that out. So, and to keep those compartmentalized. It is very important to read widely, to read outside the genres that you're used to reading, to read different points of view, as in, if you're only reading female written books, read a male written book. There's all of that will continue to keep your creative well full and enable you to continue to write the books that you want to tell. Okay, so I'm going to see about some of these questions that I might have missed. Good evening from the UK. Hello. I'm hopeful that I'll be back there soon. I'm in talks to be back there soon for signing, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been a little bit, and I'm looking forward to it. And from Liverpool, actually, that might be one of the places. I will have to look. Let's see. Happy to meet you too. You did a full re-listen to the Crossfire series. Now you're listening to Ireland. Oh, I got to tell you, audiobook wise, I was so thrilled that Jill and Jeremy came back to continue narrating Ava and Gideon. I feel like that continuity is so important. And Jill Redfield, I always say, is the voice of Sylvia Day. She has narrated the majority of my books, and I just adore her so much. Dublin, Ireland. When was the last time I was there? It's been a bit, but I love it. Thank you, and I'm glad you enjoy my books. South Florida. I was just in Florida earlier this month, actually. I just came back from Florida in early November, but that was for personal reasons. Me and my family we're a Disney family, so we end up going to either Disney World or Disneyland once a year, and this year it was Disney World. The changes you've seen over the last 7 years. Orlando, probably a book bash that were there. Like the signing was like crazy wild. That was a lot of fun. I had a good time doing that. Yes, being a writer today, I gotta tell you, 20 years into this, when I started, we had so many bookstores. We had Borders, we had Walden Books. God, there's another one that started with a B. Anyway, there was bookstores everywhere. and so many different chains, so many independent bookstores, so many different distributors that we don't have now. Books had a much bigger presence in grocery stores and drugstores, um, and um, and it was, I mean, it's also 60% of adults when I started read for pleasure. Now we're in 2025, only 20% of adults read for pleasure. That is a huge market share drop. Um, we are losing readers. We're not raising readers. Um, Kids are watching videos on their tablets instead of picking up a book. Um, we're not teaching kids to enjoy reading, and I blame schools for a lot of that, because that required reading list that they give you in school is got to be the most boring books on the planet. And how are you supposed to have children want to go home and read another book when the required reading is just a slog to get through? um, we need to be cultivating the enjoyment of reading, um, because it's an escape from everyday life. It gives you a chance to unplug, to go live somewhere else for the time that you're in that story, to meet new people, to experience new points of view, to learn empathy for people who are experiencing something that you yourself have not experienced. Um, Reading for pleasure is so important emotionally and mentally, and in our ability to communicate with each other as human beings, that it's really unfortunate that we are in this position of reading is dying. And we have a whole new generation of children who missed formative learning years and are illiterate, and they obviously are not going to grow up being readers because they can't read, and so they're getting all of their information from videos. And that is really a crisis that we need to address urgently. um, let's see, NOLA, yes. So my best friend lives in NOLA, so I'm actually there at least once a year, for personal reasons, of course, to hang out with her. Her and I met when we were in the Army. So we were both fresh out of basic training, and we had both been stationed at the Defense Language Institute. Some of you guys might know that I was a Russian linguist interrogator for the U.S. Army, and so was she, and that's how we met. So we've been friends. I've been friends with her longer than I've been married, and we have been through it all together. And anyway, she's based in New Orleans, and I always look forward to the opportunity to be there. This year, I was there in March, and I walked in the Irish Italian Parade in Metairie, which I'll do again next year. So if that's something that you like to do, or if you like to go and see the Irish Italian Parade in Metairie, I will see you there from the parade in March. So I am looking forward to that again. Is writing a children's book easy? Um, Honestly, I honestly do not know. Do you do you have an illustrator? What age group are you writing to? Are you a member? I'm sure there is, and the name is escaping me, but there are writers organizations for writers of children's books. And if you are a writer, one, it doesn't matter what you're writing. It doesn't matter if you write newspaper articles, if you write for online magazines, if you're writing a book. It doesn't matter if you're writing a children's book, fiction, nonfiction. If you are a writer, you should be a member of the Authors Guild, and I strongly urge you to join. Again, we are experiencing a crisis in publishing, and we're experiencing a crisis as writers. AI is a very real concern, and our works are being pirated, and they're being fenced to the public for profit by these companies. All of these things require a collective voice, and the Authors Guild is the oldest writing organization, and it's over 100 years old. And it is a very powerful organization, and every writer, anyone who is writing, should be a member of the Authors Guild. And then from the Authors Guild, you can also join writing organizations for your particular genre or niche, and those are very important, and they would be able to answer your question about writing and publishing a children's book with much more knowledge than I can. And it's really important to have that sort of support behind you. I really miss Romance Writers of America. There was a lot that they offered, but the Authors Guild, I cannot recommend it enough, and I firmly believe that if you're writing, you should be a member. Yay, I'm so glad you enjoyed Ireland. I'm so glad you listened to the Crossfire series a lot. I am just so thrilled to be able to give you these lovely audiobooks. I have an amazing audiobook publisher. We work very collaboratively on finding the narrators. They always, hire multiple narrators, which really, I think, gives you kind of that experience, like a wider experience through audio. And I hear from people all the time that reading the book and then listening to it on audio are really two very different experiences, and each one is valuable in their own way. So I'm so glad that you enjoy the audiobooks, because I know that we have done a lot of work to make them fabulous, and that's all thanks to these wonderful, wonderful narrators that we have, that just connect with the material and can really convey it to you. In speaking to the narrators, their love of the material is reflected in their reading of it, and I think that's just priceless. I'm so grateful to them. Carla, I miss you tons too. Carla, you are in Mississippi now, right? I always get, yes, you're in Mississippi. I always want to say Louisiana, but you're not. I miss you too. Will there ever be a Crossfire movie? It is a question that comes up a lot. It comes up in every chat that we do, and I do these once a month, and I will say it's on the last Wednesday of every month, except for December. The final Wednesday of the month is on New Year's Eve. And if I move it forward to the week before, that's Christmas Eve, and I move it before then it's a little too close to this one. It doesn't give me a chance really to poll you about the topics that you would like to discuss with me. So we won't be doing a live in December, but we will pick it up again in January. And first part, the first week of January, we'll start polling you to see what it is that you would like to discuss. But your question about the Crossfire movie. So one, Crossfire has been optioned by 3 different studios so far. Major studios, has not been the best circumstance for the book, unfortunately. A lot of times when you see that authors' works are being developed, that they actually make it out of the option phase and into development, they're acquired by producers or production companies. And the production company then builds the package around the material and then finds a home for it, finds a studio for it. In my situation, the studios have come straight to me. And then at that point, they have to find a production partner or a producer. And then, they end up interviewing different producers and bringing different producers on board. I've had great producers who loved the material, who understood it well, who wanted to see it developed, that were fans, that knew what the magic was. And I've had producers that did not understand the material at all, and they're just trying to get a paycheck. And, a studio is offering to give them one to adapt the material. But they don't understand it. They don't know how to find the right writer to adapt it. And so that's it creates an extra step that needs to be addressed before it gets into production. And then the hurdle that we have run into every time it's been optioned is either in the first instance when Lionsgate had it, they searched for a writer for 3 years and they could not find a writer to adapt the material. Unfortunately, for Crossfire at the time, the 50 Shades of Grey books were being adapted for film. And unfortunately, a lot of readers, for reasons that I have yet to understand, and I've been trying to figure it out for 13 years now, why they think Crossfire and 50 Shades have anything in common with each other at all, because they don't. They are two entirely different books with entirely different relationship dynamics, entirely different characters, entirely different traumas to deal with, totally different. Unfortunately, we have just kind of like this thought that's out there, that they're similar. And so when screenwriters come on board the project and they start researching the book and they start, seeing what fan sentiment is, and they see, lists where if you like 50 Shades of Grey, you'll like this, then they go, oh, they must be similar somehow. And then they write the script in that direction, which deviates so far from what Crossfire is and who those Crossfire characters are, that they lose Crossfire entirely. So that became the issue when Lionsgate had it. For 3 years, they had writers come in and give their take on the material, and they were not giving the take on Crossfire. They were giving the take on 50 Shades. So it never moved past that stage. When it moved to the second studio that acquired it, they picked a producer, and that producer had difficulty hiring writers and getting writers that could adapt the material. And then the third studio that picked it up mistakenly believed that the producer that had been attached to the material with the second studio could somehow make it work with them when she couldn't make it work with the other studio. And I was presented with a script by a writer that had literally nothing in it from the Crossfire books other than the character names. They had completely different occupations. Ava was suddenly not a college graduate. She was a dropout. She was there was a huge economic discrepancy between her and Gideon, which does not exist in the Crossfire series. In the Crossfire series, they are both extremely wealthy individually. And there's no way to control the other one through money or anything else. It's only through communication and therapy that they can move themselves forward. It is not about controlling the other person, because they just don't have the means to fight back from being controlled in that way. And so it just completely changed the relationship dynamics, and it completely changed the characters. They were very different. And so I'm obviously not going to allow anyone to adapt the work and change the characters from who they are. there are a lot of things that you can change and add and be creative about with the Crossfire series. The first three books are told only from Ava's perspective. The beauty of a television show, and going back to, is there going to be a Crossfire movie? Crossfire has never been in development as a motion picture. It has always been in development as a long running series. Every studio that has acquired it has envisioned an entire series, like entire season per book. So a minimum of 6 seasons, but of course at that point they can continue to carry on with the story. And of course now we have Ireland and Elusive, which gives them the opportunity to continue even further into that world. But the beauty of a television series would be the opportunity for you to spend time with Carrie when he's not with Ava, and to spend time with Gideon when he's not with Ava, because the first 3 books you're only in her perspective. Moving into the 4th and 5th book, where you do get Gideon's perspective, it would be lovely to see what Chris Vidal Sr. is doing when Gideon and Ava aren't in the room. Or Christopher Jr., Ireland, what is she experiencing when she's dealing with Rick in the first 5 books? Those sorts of things are ways in which anyone who tackles the material can be as creative as they want to be, and to take the story in different directions while remaining true to the characters and their dynamic that you fell in love with in the book. So we have constantly had an issue with finding writers who will expand upon the world while staying true to it. So right now it is not under option. It is not in development. We have continued to try to find the right production partner. And we've had, conversations with studios since the 3rd option. And we just keep running into the issue of creating a work that's true to the source material. So we're hopeful, I remain hopeful. And I think that one day it will happen, that the right production team will acquire the work with an eye toward being as true to the material as possible, because it remains in demand. It is a series that continues to find new readers. You can walk into any bookstore in the country and the Crossfire books are still on the shelf 13 years after Bared to You first came out. The life cycle of a book on a bookstore shelf is 90 days. So to still be on the shelf 13 years later is just a testament to your love for the material, and the fact that you recommend the books to your friends and family, that you give it as gifts to people that you love, to readers that that you continue to make TikTok videos about how much you love it, how much you recommend it. All of those things, I cannot thank you enough. And as we're here, right before Thanksgiving, and the things that I'm grateful for, I'm so grateful for your love for the series, and the fact that you're so vocal about your love for the series, because that is what keeps the series finding new readers, and that's what keeps alive the possibility that it will be adapted and on your small screen at some point in a way that you love and that you believe in. Yeah, timing is anything. The Renegade Angel series. So the thing is, my speed as a writer is really where we run into an issue. It takes me about a year to write a book. It takes me about a year to write one book. I used to be a lot faster when I started, but my characters are a lot more complicated now than when I first began writing. I have always written about survivors. If you're a writer, one of the most important things that you can do is to take a look at your work and seeing what your dominant themes are on your writing. What are you constantly conveying in every book that you write? A friend of mine, her dominant topic is family, and the core of her story is that family dynamic. And so a lot of brothers and cousins and sisters, but everything comes back to their primary concern is their family. For me, I write about survivors. Um, Surviving is the human condition. It is something that every single human being on this planet is a survivor of something. We are all traumatized by something in our life, and that the degree of that trauma obviously is individual. But we have all hit something that caused us to reevaluate who we are and how we feel and how we move forward and how we carry that um, through the rest of our lives, how we cope with it, how it impacts our ability to have intimate and healthy relationships with other people. That is my dominant theme, and it has been my dominant theme in every book that I've ever written. But as I have progressed in my career, those topics have become weightier. They take more time for me to research, and it takes me longer to write a book. So when you look at being within a series and trying to juggle multiple series, at this point it's not possible for me to do that unless, say I released a Crossroads book every other year and then another series in the odd years. Nobody wants to wait. I mean, it's hard enough to wait a year for a book. It's even harder to wait a couple years. So I that and I haven't figured out the solution to that yet. How to write more in a reasonable amount of time for readers. But that's the sticking point with that. Um, and that's really all I can say is I wish I could write faster and produce more books the way that I used to. But I am at that point where it really takes a lot of time for me to complete a full length novel. Um, a follow up to Eve of Chaos. Did you read Marked? I mean, they're shorter stories, obviously, but it does give you some insight into how that love triangle resolves. If you've read Marked, if not, it's available, and that for some it's helped to kind of ease the gap. I know it's a common request. Actually, people would like me to continue the Mark series with Eve of Darkness, Eve of Destruction, Eve of Chaos, and the Renegade Angel series, which I was just answering about when I was talking about, my writing slow is really a contributing factor to my ability to juggle multiple series. The Renegade Angel series is set in the same world as the Mark series. So if you haven't read the Renegade Angel series, that is another way for you to stay in that world a little bit longer. Oh, thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. I am so excited for you guys to get your hands on Elusive. Yes, there is a PO box, and it's on my website. Let me see if I can. It should be on the extras page of my website. Might have it. It might be on the contact page of my website. When you we have over 2,000 pages on sylviaday.com, and that doesn't include the store, which is new. So some of you may have not known that there's also a store on sylviaday.com where you can order personalized and autographed copies of my books, shipped anywhere in the world. And there are a lot of first editions there are a lot of out of print editions. So when they're gone, they're gone. That book is not in existence anymore. Not that the book is not still available, but that edition with that cover is no longer in print. Either they've reissued that book and it has a new cover, or they went from mass market to trade paperback, or paperback to mass market, like the original Crossfire books, with the cufflinks and the objects, whatever, have been out of print since the 10-year anniversary, where they reissued the Crossfire series with new agate covers, which are really beautiful, and I love them. But if you're missing pieces of the original cover series, the only place you're going to find those brand new or in first edition is on my site. But back to sylviaday.com. There are over 2,000 pages on sylviaday.com. So there is a menu at the very top of the screen that has like the big macro pages. Like here's the bookshelf, here's the coming soon page, here's my bio, like that sort of thing. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will find a lot more links. And those links will take you to like the contact page, where you can find information about what my P.O. box address is if you would like to send fan mail, which I love receiving. And different things are available on the site there. Like the giveaways, like I do a monthly giveaway where I give away some of those first edition, out of print, some of those really rare books that I have in the store. I also offer those as giveaways once a month. We do a new giveaway every month. The giveaways are not listed in the top menu, but they are in the bottom menu. So scroll down to the bottom and you'll see a lot of different things on my site that you can access. And that's where you can find that information. Yes, you did. Yeah. On the southern East Coast. Yes, absolutely. I would love to. And getting back into like Florida, Georgia, I would love to get in that area. And once we get past the holidays, we'll be looking at some of the events at that time. And hopefully, we'll be adding something there. Yeah. You're like, I read on my Kindle too. And then if I really, really love the book, then I buy the physical copy of it to have on my shelves. And I love the opportunity to get those signed by my favorite authors. But I'm the same way. I read digitally, and then I keep the physical edition because I just I love it so much. All right, so we're down to the last 4 minutes. I usually stay on here for about an hour and try to get through everything. If I missed anything, please comment or let me know. And again, we're not going to be doing the live in December just because the dates don't align well with the holidays. But we'll be back in January and answering new topics. The store is at sylviaday.com/shop. And also, if you go to my website and you go to the main bookshelf page, there's also a link to autographed copies there. And then if there's a particular book that you want autographed, just click on the cover of it on the main bookshelf page, and it will take you to all the buy links, like say for Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere, because my books are available wide. I am not in KU. And there's also a link there that will take you to the page on the store where you can order that book and to be autographed and shipped to you. So there's from the main site to the shop, there's a lot of different ways to get to the books that you want, or you can just go direct to the shop, which is sylviaday.com/shop. You could also shop through Instagram, through Facebook, through TikTok shop. We try to to make it as easy as possible for you to find the books that you've been looking for, to add to your collection. The ones that, our first editions will say right on the page that's a first edition. And of course, once they're gone, they're gone. So right now the store is fully stocked with everything. Over time, some of those first editions will fall off as they sell out. And then what will be available will be the most recent edition of that book with whatever the cover is now. So yay, there's a lot of you from England today. I appreciate that so much, because I know you guys, I believe you are 8 hours ahead of me. Here I'm based in Las Vegas, so I'm in Pacific time, and it is just about 2 in the afternoon here. Reader Nation. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was my first time doing that event, and I was like, it's right here in Vegas. I should do that. My next event will also be in Vegas. That is Book Lovers Con, and that is in March. And that Reader Nation was a 1-day event. Book Lovers Con is a 3-day event, although they also sell single day passes if you just want to come for a particular day. They do signings on Friday afternoon and also again on Saturday morning. I am at this Saturday morning signing, and that's a super fun event. I've done it. I've worked with this event coordinator since 2006. She used to do the Romantic Times convention when the Romantic Times magazine was still being published. That's another thing that we used to have when I started that we no longer have, and it's sorely missed. The Romantic Times magazine was a great way to see what new books were coming out, and read reviews from the amazing reviewers that they had working for the magazine, and they had a shopping list for the books that were coming out this month, and it was a great way for readers to know what was coming out there, and there really hasn't been anything that fills that gap. But they also did a big convention, the Romantic Times convention, and she managed that, thousands of people, so on, and now she does Book Lovers Con, and it's going to be in Vegas this year, so I'm really excited about that. All right, so for those of you that are celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow, I wish you a lovely day with your loved ones. I hope it's relaxing. I hope you have the most amazing food and a wonderful time. If you love football like I do, Cowboys fan here. So I always get to watch my team play on Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys will, if the team that you're rooting for is playing tomorrow, I hope they do well, unless they're the Chiefs that are playing the Cowboys, and then no. But otherwise, yes, I hope we all have a great day tomorrow, and I wish you a lovely day. If you're not celebrating the holiday tomorrow, I still wish you a lovely, wonderful, relaxing day, and I hope that all good things happen to you. And I just want to say again that I am so grateful for you. I'm grateful for the time that you spend reading my books. I'm grateful that you recommend them. I'm grateful that you spend time here with me when we do these chats during the month. Thank you for following me on social media. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you, and so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And okay. Thanks for being here with me today, guys, and I look forward to chatting with you again in January. Much love. Now, let me see if I can figure out how to turn this off.